Vimala. I'm so thankful to you for, agreeing to be in this program. As you know, this is a series called Opening the Inner Eye, and our aim is to have some conversation which will help people align their personal purpose with a larger impact. And you being one of the people who has done that
Oh,
extremely well, we are very happy to have you. So Vimala is a coach, a mother to 15 children and counting. And I personally know her as an amazing enabler to children, women, men, and to organizations. So let me just tell you a little bit about Vimla. She's the founder of a company called Insight Coaching Solutions, which is a well-known company which does a lot of work. A lot of it is just pro bono, and of course, she is certified in many instruments. She's numbers oriented. She was born and brought up in the US and went into a very technical line, and then in the prime of her youth, just decided to let everything go and pursue her passion, which I suppose her inner eye opened and her heart opened even larger, and she came to India, and now she does professional work, and of course, on the side, is also uh, running a home, and not the kind of home you think where people are just put. She lives with them, you know. So, welcome, Vimla. And I would like you
thank
to
you.
add a little bit about yourself, which I perhaps have missed, so
Sure,
that we
sure.
get to know you better.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for this opportunity to kind of share my story and look at it from a perspective of I'm work in progress. I have alignment on days, I have malalignment on other days, and it's a moment by moment sometimes. But overall, generally speaking, easiest way to remember me is India, US, India. Born in India, left here when I was 3 years old. So my parents' family migrated to the US back in the late 60s when there was the huge beginning of the brain drain in India. And my so I was raised in the US. I have a PhD in pharmacology. Being a Tambram, my parents gave me a choice, be a doctor or marry a doctor. So I chose to become a doctor and I did my PhD and worked actually in academia for many years and then switched to corporate. And this transition from um, academia to corporate was very tumultuous for me. And it wasn't something that I really wanted to do. It was something that I had a very toxic boss and didn't align to his values. Didn't know it at the time, but now I like rewrite the story and say, oh, I can't work here anymore, and jumped into corporate thinking, oh, now I can actually make the money. And got zero fulfillment from that inside. And through the help of a Swami from the Sri Ramakrishna Mission, which we were a part of when I was growing up, he said, you have to find your inner purpose. And I said, how do I do that? He goes, I don't know. He goes, there is no formula to do this. So for me, it was just stepping away, going inside, and I stayed at a monastery, the Vivekananda monastery. I stayed there for about, I think 10 days total, of which 7 days I did a havan. And during this haven, I just said, I don't know why. Why am I here? What is the purpose of my life? It's not work. Work is just a part of it. I know I'm not supposed to, I wasn't married. And my parents thought, oh, once you get married, all your answers will be there. And it didn't resonate with me. Um, so when I went in, I heard, I know it sounds crazy, but I heard a voice that said, work with children. I have not, I had not worked with children. My PhD was in, post-operative surgical infections and nutrition, so very, very far removed from children. And so I thought, oh, well, let's see how this is going to work out. And there was a girl the day after I went back, after my husband back to my home, there was a message from a hospital, Shriners Hospital, which specifically um, they 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 take in kids who have spinal cord injuries, and they take care of all their surgical needs for free. It's an amazing organization. And I was a volunteer, and they said, "Hey, look, there's a little Indian girl that's come. She's not eating. She has surgery in 10 days." And the doctor said if she doesn't eat and she's not, if her nutrition doesn't improve, we're gonna have to send her back to India without surgery. And I thought, oh, okay, let me come in, let me see. I said, look, I don't know anything about India. I don't speak an Indian language, but let me come in and see the girl. And I walked into her room that evening, and this little girl just looked at me. She was a 12-year-old girl, very, very like small, and she was curved. So she had polio in both her legs, and she had curvature of the spine, or very, very deep uh, hump on her back. So, she wasn't going to school. She wasn't learning anything. So there was an organization in India that said, "Hey, can you guys help her?" And they sent x-rays and everything back and forth. And when she saw me walk in the room, she just looked at me and said, "Akka." And I thought, okay, this is strange. And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "What do you need?" And she just said, "I want sambar, I want idli, I want rasam." And I said, "Yeah, I can get that for you." And that was the beginning. So with her, I was her medical escort back to India, and again, took time off, and came to India, and I just fell in love with the children here. And this was back in 94, I think. And then I worked for that organization for a few years, then went back to the US, uh, in desperate need of money and taking care of my family. And I ended up moving here in 2000, starting my own organization. So I've been here for 25 years in India. And my youngest child is 14. My oldest is 39. I have 6 grandchildren. And over the years, I have learned, I have fallen, I have gotten myself back up. And it's been a constant reinventing myself every single time. There was an obstacle. We didn't have money. I went back to work. I did not like corporate work for the, third, fourth time. Like, really, I don't like corporate work. I stepped out and I did leadership development and coaching. From a I did it with a curiosity. I didn't know anything about it. I said, "Yeah, let me go and see. I think I might be able to be a good coach, possibly be a good um uh someone who can help people communicate and lead better." And then I learned. So that was in 2010. And in 2010, I started my journey in leadership development, coaching. I did my first psychometric in 2010 with MBTI, then did Hogan, and of course now doing Lumina. And it's just been a journey. Every single time I felt like, oh, is this all there is? There's something else that opens up. So that's just a little
Great.
bit about me.
Thanks. And I must add that Vimla continues to upgrade herself. She's an NLP trainer. She's accredited and runs the workshops based on Louis Hay's work. So, so not only running a home for 15 children and earning, but also spending and updating herself. So obviously, a lot to learn from you. So thanks a lot for sharing this. Even I didn't know, I know you for
Yeah,
many years, but
I
I didn't
know.
know some of this. So quite a revelation. And I wanted to check, of course, you built a successful coaching practice. And though you say you start in 2010, I was a little taken aback because I thought you've been doing it for many, 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 many more years. So while running a successful coaching practice and this home with children, what first revealed to you that your purpose was to do both, to serve leaders and vulnerable children? And
Right.
are they both important, or are you serving
Yeah.
the leaders so you can help the vulnerable children? How does it work?
Yeah. So I think for me, it was my purpose is to serve the children. That's the reason why I'm on this earth. Um, and as my children got older and more independent, um, my need for them to grow became more. So when there was an opportunity to do some leadership work, and I didn't know coaching, 2010, people didn't know what coaching really was. And a very dear friend of mine said, "Hey, I'm doing it, you do it," and dragged me along. And I said, "Oh, okay, let me see what this is." Within the first 2 or 3 sessions of the workshop and of the training, I said, "Oh my God, I can use this for my kids." So the alignment was very, very easy. And because of coaching, even my kids will say, I became more, I became a better mom. And I think that's the journey when you take on something that is very deep and inner work and asking questions. So I always say that you cannot coach anybody unless you can coach yourself or be coached yourself. So during my coaching training, I developed a lot of curiosity. And I think as a parent, curiosity is a key skill for us to have. So the purpose of working with the children aligned itself with my work as coach. Now my purpose is expanded from saying, oh, it's only working with children and serving children. It's serving communities and in any way I can. And like you said, in 2010, I did my coaching. In 2015, I started my NLP journey. And NLP again took my coaching to the next level. So I did NLP as a trainer, and I'm an NLP coach. And it just, I understood, like we say in NLP, you understand the structure of excellence. So I could understand each child, each person that I work with has their own structures that are their own. And when you recognize your structures, you can shift and change your structures to make them serve you best in this moment. And I think that's where, for me, coaching just aligned itself so well with who I am.
Yeah. So to that extent, it looks like your work with children has helped you deepen your coaching approach.
Absolutely. It's where I practice. They're my field. So,
So,
yeah.
can structure sounds very foreboding. Can you give
Okay.
an example? Say
So, for
one.
example,
Hmm.
um, what I'll tell you an example that some of my kids hold. Um, and it's the structure of um, I'm not valued unless someone tells me I'm valued. And this
Hmm.
structure, when we talk about it from an NLP perspective, we call this an external reference,
Hmm.
meaning that I'm getting my validation from the outside. And whenever I hear my kids say, "Do you think it's good?" "Oh, my teacher said it was good." "Oh, my friends loved what I wore." And you watch the patterns. You see how often do they say, "I really like this because I like it." Um, when I see that structure serving them, great. My friends thought that this was really great. But when they say, I went and asked my friend if this was good and she said no, and I'm really hurt by it, that's when I think, is this a structure that's serving them right now? And then I'll gently ask, I said, "What do you think?" Just gently. I said, if you could ask yourself, if you were your own best friend, what would you say? And they look at me and they say, "Well, I might say that I like it, but I'm unsure of it." And I said, "And where will you get that surety?" So I work with my children. The structure of that is switching them from an external reference more to an internal reference. And it's a very common structure
Yes.
that we hold, and many of us hold. Sometimes it really serves us when we need to get feedback. For example, a leader might say, "I'm going to go ask my team how I'm doing as a leader." Great, go for it. Or I asked my team how I was as a leader, and um, I don't even want to be a leader anymore. The feedback I got, was so negative, or "I don't believe this. This is not who I am." And I'm like, "Okay, well, who are you? Who do you think
Hmm.
you are?" And I think these kind of patterns show up in our lives in many, many, many different ways. Now, and I bring this up because we live in a society that's extremely externally referenced with
Yes. Yes.
social media, with um, looking outside before we look inside.
That
And
is.
I think it should be reversed. Let me look inside as a leader. What do I think my team's going to say? So when I do get that feedback, I'm like, that's interesting. Not what I was expecting. Or, yeah, that was kind of what I was expecting. This is what I want to work on this one pattern. I want to work on this one skill so that I can improve it. And I think that's what I'd like to work, even as a coach, is what I like to work at.
Great. Because just when I was listening to you, what struck me was yes, you should have internal locus of control. However, the events outside make it look like the more you're validated, the better your business, the more you will
Right?
earn, number
Yeah.
of followers, number of likes.
Hmm.
And if I needed money a lot, I would be really looking at that.
Right.
How do you reconcile that and become aligned?
Yeah. So this is another structure. And this is actually a structure of one thing causes everything.
Hmm.
And, Carol Dweck talks about this in her growth mindset book. And she says that if something doesn't work, it doesn't mean it's never, ever going to work. Or if something works, that this is the only reason why it works. Not that way in life. And so if we're singular and saying only when I get likes will I make money, we will limit ourselves. We say, I'd like to get this many likes, but more importantly, what I like to work with people when they say, oh, I'm so worried, I'm so concerned. What is it that you're doing this for? Are you doing it for the likes? Are you doing it if you're run by finance? What does that finance give you that's more important than just the money? What does that money give you? Oh, it gives me security. Okay, so in order to be secure, you need to have X number of rupees, dollars, euros. In order to do that, you want to work hard so you can get people to come. So now the question is, what are you doing it for yourself? Yes, you want security. And once you get security, that's great. But what are you doing? Whether it's, a podcast or um, Insta, whatever it is, what is that serving higher than you?
Hmm.
And do you believe in
Yeah.
that?
Hmm.
And
Right.
I think when we believe in what we do, we tend to work at a space where we serve that need of this is what I love to do, and I'm serving that need. And it expands. It expands not just to you, but to your family and then outwards. And it just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I think that's what's really important. If we look at this one factor is going to make or break me, you become very limited. So I like to work with people and expand that one factor. Yes. And what else? And what else? And what else? And what else is important? And what else is important? And then you start working with values. You start working with, and who are you when you are working at your highest? And you're aligned to like everything is working out for you and you're doing exactly what you feel you're put on this earth for. Who do you become? Who is that person?
So this,
Work from that. Work from that.
yeah. So this leads me to the next question because you're working with a lot of course, with children, this doesn't apply as much because they always have a deeper purpose. They're not looking at material success. Children are
Mm.
very open minded. But when you're working with high achieving professionals
Mhm.
who are everything outside but empty inside, how do you work with them? Maybe you can take me through an example.
Yeah, sure. So a couple of things. One is my belief in humans is that everybody is absolutely 100% full in that moment. Whether it's whether they recognize it or not, or whether they're aware of the fullness that they have in their life, that could be something that I work with people on. When people come to me, I had a session this morning of a leader saying that, oh, I work with a bunch of children. And I keep telling them the same thing, and they're just so irresponsible. And I just asked the question, I said, would you like to change a perspective? I said, I could I invite you to change a perspective? And they said, yeah, of course, sure. And I said, what if you believed instead of saying they were children, but you saw them as adults who are looking for belonging on your team? They're looking for a space where they could say, I own this piece. What would happen? And right away they said, okay, I get it. Yeah. Okay, I get it. I'm like, and I said, yeah, sometimes we get into a little bit of a judgy, judgy judgerson comes out of us, or we are saying that in our heads. So I always tell people, if you see something you don't like in someone else, it's a structure you hold within yourself. So if you see your team as being very childish, childlike, uh, what in you is childish, childlike that you'd like to work on? Are there times when you are this way and you berate yourself? Because it doesn't come from thin air. It's all there within you, and then it's projected out. And you say, "Oh yeah, I could do this." And we worked together, and I said, what would you like for your team? What are two things you want from your team today? Let's chunk it down. Nobody's going to mature overnight, including you. You see these little moths, and they're right now just maybe they're in a space of creating their chrysalis. Maybe they're just creating their cocoon. Maybe they're in the cocoon and they're trying to get out. Maybe they're out and they're just, wandering. I said, wherever your team member, each member is, can you be a catalyst to help them? Identify where they are and say, I see you as this. This is where I think you need the help, and then give them the support they need. If you give a caterpillar the task to go from flower to flower and expect them to fly, it's not going to happen. If you expect the moth that's trying to get out of the cocoon to be organized and to tell you how many flowers it saw that day, it's not going to do it. So where are your team members? In what part of development are they? And more importantly, how can you support their development?
Yeah. So, I know you've been through many ups and downs, and perhaps even been like, I have how do I feed my children in the next 3 months, etc. So balancing this charitable, noble intention with practical earning, or say for many of our coaches, a coaching practice.
Yeah.
How do you balance that? Because uh, I'm just being very cynical and frank, but the moment they know that you do it charitably, if they want everything charitable. People don't want to pay, So how do you? I can't hear you, Vimla. Yeah.
I don't think I do everything charitable. I think that's the key. Some things are charitable, some things are very clearly not.
Yeah, but how do you contain expectations of others that it will be charitable?
I don't think I ever had that boundary crossed. This is something I do for money. This is something I do for free.
Okay.
And I set that boundary for myself first. So then there's no, if someone says, can you do this for free? I'll say, no, actually, this is part of how I make my money. This is how I can afford giving things to my children. So I really can't. Maybe I'll give them a discount. I do a lot of stuff for free because I think that's just who I am. But I'm allowed to make my money and earn so that I can give to the kids, give to myself, buy stuff, as we say, we just need to buy stuff. So I have it in my head. This is what I do for money. This is what I do for free. I also know that in coaching, and this is the thing with coaches, and maybe it's a generalization, but many coaches struggle with, I work with people who, especially if you're doing non-corporate work coaching, and you're doing life coaching, for example. Many times they say, oh, my coachee can't afford this session. They can't afford so many sessions. I said, what can they afford? First question is, what are they willing? When they say they can't afford something, what's the value they're getting back? And I asked myself this first. What value am I providing them that is important to them? If they can't pay it now, my first thing is pay it in small increments. Okay? Have 3 sessions, but pay it over 6 months. Absolutely fine. That's one way. Another way is to say, okay, why don't you do I'll give you one free session, and then first you do two sessions. The last session will be free. It's another way of saying, okay, I know that by that third session, just because of the kind of coaching that I do, that they will say, oh my God, I must do this. I have to, I want to continue. Or let me pay you when once I get over my financial struggle, I'll pay you that, which is fine. Um, I try not to let people um say, okay, I can't pay for anything, because then there's no value for them. And I think this came actually because my mom was a music teacher, and she used to sing Carnatic music, and she used to teach. And people would come, kids would come. And there was one college student who came to her and she said, Auntie, I don't know how much I can pay you because I'm in college. I am struggling with my college tuition and my books, and my I'm staying away from my family, and it is a struggle for us. And I have two siblings, who are coming into college next year. And my parent, I'm doing this because I love music, and I really want to learn from you, Auntie. And my mom said, it's okay, pay me something, but pay me so that it will cause a little bit of discomfort to you. And I tell my mom, I said, just let them. You have so many students and we have enough. Let them go for free. And she said, no. She said, as a teacher, as a guru, and I think a coach, mentors, whatever we do, there is a value to what we bring into their life. If they don't pay for it, that value will go down for them. And it was a huge lesson that I learned very young. And I think that has helped me kind of set my boundaries of this number of coachings I'll do for free. I only do free coaching for students. Anyone else who's struggling, even if you're in between jobs, I said, you can pay me once you get a job. I will help you I will coach you until you get a job, and then you pay me once you get a job. If you're in between, or if you're going through a really tough time, pay me something. It doesn't have to be my full fee. Pay me something, because that's the value you will get from it. And when it comes to service and children and working with my kids, that is my life dedication. And there's a very deep red, 72 font line that's between service and work. Huge, huge difference. And the two can never be exchanged. Coaching is a service. It is not my service. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. I wanted to check with you. See, you found your purpose fairly young.
Very young.
You're not, yeah, but many of us even look at that question only when we are in our 40s or something. What
Yeah.
are the paradigm shifts which are
Yeah.
needed, and because of the age, it's more difficult to adapt?
Well, I look at it this way. Purpose comes when we search. We search when there is something in your life that is not aligned. And we search for purpose all throughout our lives. I found a purpose of my life back when I was in my late 20s. I found another purpose in my life when I was in my mid 30s, early 40s. In my 50s, I had another purpose. I got married when I was when I was 50. That was another purpose in my life. I had a purpose of just like taking care of myself. So purpose doesn't mean a singular thing. But I really do believe that when we are younger and we bump through life with this, what I talked about before, an external reference. They told me to do this, so I'm doing this. I became an engineer because my parents told me to. I became an engineer because my family needed me to go to college and get a job so I can take care of them. That's a purpose.
It is.
And it's a beautiful purpose. But then it changes. Then you become a mother, father, you become an uncle, aunt, something happens in life and you say, you know what? I did this engineering because My family wanted me to. Now I really wanted, I want to be a marathon runner. I want to be a artist. I want to be a coach. And I think it changes, it shifts. Um, but that catalyst, that moment in your life, it's usually when you're not aligned to your values. So I eagerly tell coaches and all my coachees, discover, elicit, unpack your values, find out what values you're living in and what values are being challenged. And values, for the most part, can shift and change in priority.
Yes,
And you need to know that. And value elicitation once a year is a good practice. What's
yes.
important for me this year? It may not have been important for me last year, but then things changed. I know post pandemic, a lot of people said health is really important for me. It wasn't important for me before. Now it's all of a sudden it showed up on my value list of I want to be healthy. I want my family to be healthy. I want to make healthy choices. So the value shifts, the behavior shifts, purpose becomes unveiled.
I know that you have been through lots of ups and downs, and I wanted to check with you about something about you're a caregiver role, and all of us at various times have to do this caregiving role, and very often caregiving role comes with grief,
Yeah, of
looking
course.
after. How how have you been so resilient, and what would be your
Yeah.
suggestions
My,
to
yeah,
others to be prepared? Because when it comes, you have to handle it. How do you
yeah.
prepare yourself?
It's like asking a new a pregnant woman or a family that's expecting. How do you prepare to become a parent? You really can't. You can read all the books. You can listen to all the podcasts and watch the YouTubes. And when the baby actually comes, that's when it is. It's similar with grief. Grief will enter everyone's life. Some people get it when they're very young. Some people, and I think in a way, when grief touches people when they're young, it can be a very, very powerful gift. Maya Angelou, in her book, I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, says that my pain, her whole story is a life when she was a child was just painful, painful, painful. In her 20s, it was painful, painful, painful. In her 30s, in her 40s, and she said, I bounce back every time because that child bounced back then. Louise Hay says the same thing. You have to reconcile with the traumas and with the tragedies that happened to you when you're a child. The more resilient you are, the more comfortable you become with grief. And I walk now with grief as a partner in life, sometimes as a resource even. Grief can be a very powerful resource because when you lose, and I've lost my husband, I've lost two children, and their pain brings me to love. The memory of them, the loss of them brings me to a deep understanding of my potential to love, my potential to have been loved, and how much these souls just loved me and how much I love them. And it is a beautiful moment in my life. So I have worked with the grief. I have been coached. I have gone through enormous hours of trying to understand that whole, how to say, misconception of only good is supposed to come to me. It's not that only good is supposed to come to me. Even this is good for me. And I think that's the lesson that I've learned in life. No matter what happens to me, something good is going to come from it. So I lost my daughter last year, and Divya came to me when she was about 12 years old. And again, she was, she had a physical disability. Then she fell. And then she was paralyzed, and it's been an up and down roller coaster. And then life was really fabulously smooth for her. But she kept saying, why? I mean, how much more am I going to do? Every day she would struggle to get out of bed. Every day she'd struggle to get on and off the toilet and go to work and sit in a cab. And she goes, it's just a struggle. Is that all life is? And I'm like, it's a different struggle, but all of us struggle. And and she said, I don't know. She kept asking me. And then finally in the end, she said, I know now it's time for me to let go.
Wow.
I wasn't ready, but she was. And it wasn't about me. And I had to separate myself. I had to let her go. And I had to step away, like far away, and let other people make decisions. And I think, that was the best thing I did for her and me. I knew. She knew. And I said, I get it. I understand. I love you enough to let you go. It took that last year was absolutely horrible for me. And it was through coaching, through lots and lots of coaching, that I was able to restructure my story of our enormous, enormous mother-child love story. Just enveloped it in love and fun and laughter and pain, and just I was able to serve her till the end is such a reward, not a curse. And I frame the story that way through coaching. And this is the power. When I say I know I'm a good coach, is because I know good coaches and I've been coached.
Yeah, I think one thing which is very important, and this is something anecdotally I keep hearing. For example, most of the Western coaches have a paid coach throughout.
Yeah.
And
I do too. Yeah.
Yeah,
It helps.
but I don't have one all the time. Maybe it's, give and take, but just the value of it is something which is coming to me more and more. And I would like all coaches to take that very seriously. If you want someone else to pay you for coaching, who are you paying for your coaching? How are you
Yeah.
developing?
How are you? And the nice thing, I do think, like doctors, you get a professional courtesy in coaching. Absolutely. Go to a coach that you know, and that you say, hey, look, I'll, it's professional courtesy. When a surgeon goes to another surgeon, that surgeon doesn't charge them. Okay. So just know that you can definitely be coached on professional courtesy. But show up as a coachee. Don't meta coach them and say, oh, they should ask this question, they should ask that. Allow the process. Just let it unfold and really be there for yourself. And coaches or therapy, counseling, all of that is so, so, so important. So very, very, very important. And I think that's what I really want people to take away, is that ask for help. Ask for help in everything that you do. I had a tough coaching conversation. Oh, how can I make it better? Go ask another coach. We've all had it. No matter how seasoned you are, you can be coached for 20 years. You'll still have one of those sessions where you're like, oh my God, that was so tough. And then go and talk to somebody about it. Be coached on something you're dealing with in life. Be coached on your own professional development. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. And often we, you went into looking after children when you didn't know whether you'll have the resources. But very often we wait. Okay, I'll make so much and then do it. So how do we integrate them in a more aligned manner?
So, when you look back in your life, 2020 would have been for me, or 6/6 would have been, I probably should have waited another year before I came, so I would have had the economy to do this. But there is a certain amount of faith. So a lot of times it's this uncertainty, and there's a quote that I absolutely love: the opposite of uncertainty is not certainty, it's faith. When you have enough faith that I'm going to do this, whatever happens, I know that I will learn from it. Not that I'll be successful at it, but I'll learn from it. Let me give it a shot. I think that's where, when people say, I want to wait until I have this much money, I say, what if you never get the money? Then you'll never do it. Is that okay for you? The other question is, What if you do it now and you don't have the money and it's not successful? What happens? What if you do it now and you didn't have enough money and it is successful? What does that tell you about you? And finally, what if you don't do it? What if you do it and you have the money? What happens? Now, each of these quadrants is a possibility. Which possibility serves you right now? And I'm not the one to determine that. It could be I need to wait. Something's telling me to wait, wait. Something's telling me to go for it, go for it. And I think that's, but to relook at these different ways, the perspectives, I would say taking on perspectives, as many perspectives as you can on a situation will reveal the solution. In NLP, Judith Delosier, who was one of the pioneers, and I think she's considered the queen of NLP, one of the early starters. And she came up with a model that many NLPers use, which is, I think a lot of coaches use it, is perceptual positions, where you sit as the primary person, then you sit as a third party, and then you sit as the other person. This kind of perspective taking practice is so important for coaches.
Yes.
For yourself as well as for your coachees. So take on perspectives. If you are in a dilemma, take on perspectives. If you don't know which way to go, the answer is within you. The answer is not outside. No one's going to tell you to go and do it, and then you're going to do it. The answer was within you all the time.
So I know you use a lot of techniques with Louis Hay. So when you go within, how do you keep body awareness and use it as a tool?
Actually, I wasn't. It's so funny. Most of my meditation healing practice was very still in a sitting position. I've learned that the somatic movement of healing is important too. That dance and movement. I always thought dance is a part of healing, yes, but I never looked at it as a part of my coaching, as a part of bringing healing into just kind of like, not just like looking up, but moving. You know, expanding yourself, contracting yourself, doing different things, saying something in a contracted position, saying it in an expanded position. What's more resourceful for you in this moment? And I'll give you an example of this. Somebody said, you know, they wanted to have more confidence. And this was a man, a senior leader who said, who wanted a coach. And I thought it was just corporate coaching. You know, we go in and we say, and I walked into his cabin. So he was that senior. And he had all these awards up. And, you know, you could tell that this guy, successful. And I said, okay, what do you really want to work on? He said, I want to build my confidence. I'm like, oh. Like looking around, I'm like, confidence in what? I said, you exude confidence. So can you tell me a little bit more about what do you mean by confidence? And he said, you know, I was divorced about 5 years ago. And I'm re-entering this phase in my life of being alone, feeling lonely, and dating. And I have no confidence in that at all. He said, I feel like I'm a 18-year-old kid, 20-year-old kid. And I have, my feet are jelly when I even think about this. And I asked him, I said, okay, I want you to stand up. And I want you to feel that jelly in your legs and start wiggling your legs like it's, you know, like it's jelly. And he's like, you know, we were in his cabin, so it was kind of safe. It was a safe space for him. And he did that. And I said, while you're jiggling your legs and saying that, say, I am safe. And keep saying, I am safe, and keep moving around until the jelly or the movement that you're doing makes you safe. And he worked through he was juggling. He's like, yeah, I'm not safe. He goes, this isn't right, this is right. He finally stood. And I was so surprised. He didn't stand like as if he was giving like a lecture or a talk. He said, I stood in front of my team with my knees a little bent, a little soft, when we're working like over something, we're all working together. And when my legs are soft. And I said, bring that in.
Vimala, I can't hear you.
Oh dear, can you not hear me now?
No, you said he stood up in front of his team with his legs bent.
Yeah, with his legs, what he said was softer. My knees were bent and I was softer. So it went from, it wasn't jelly to strong 100%. It was jelly to softness. That movement for him created his understanding of what confidence was. Confidence wasn't going on a date and saying, yes, I found the perfect woman. So it was softening himself to just being open. And we worked on this for about 3 months, along with his team. We say when we're corporate coaching, it's never about just the team. It's always something much deeper. And I remember I told him after we finished, after 3 months of coaching, I said, I've got to tell your story to people. Won't mention your name. Just your story is just so fantastic.
Mhm.
And 2 years later, he was married and he did send me a note. He said, hey, I got married over the weekend. Just want to let you know. I was so happy for him. And I said, it takes time, though. It takes time to heal and to soften. And I love that concept. He taught me that it doesn't have to go from, total depletion to, aha, I am this, 100% fantastic. It's, oh, I'm just here today. And this is okay for me today. And that healing takes time.
Great.
Yeah.
So thanks a lot. I think we nice 45 minutes we've been conversing. Any
Yeah.
closing remarks that you would like to make?
Closing remarks is just move forward. Even if it's a half a step forward, move forward every day towards your goal. Take that courageous half step. If you decide that you want to start, running, buy a pair of shoes and keep your shoes on every morning. Don't even have to go for the walk. Just put your shoes on every day. The next week, say I'm going to walk around the block. The week after that, say I'm going to do 2 blocks. The week after that, three, four, whatever it is. Start somewhere, but begin. Take that half step. And I wish, and for you guys, I just want to say a huge thank you to you for allowing us to have this wonderful conversation. We have so many beautiful conversations. This is just one more of those conversations.
Absolutely. And because we are going to show this as a pre-recorded webinar, I request all the people who are listening to put their questions. And I know we may not answer them live, but we really would like to have your questions because then we know that you have some thoughts and we will get back to you with those and maybe have another conversation based on those questions. So thanks a lot. Delightful
Thank
speaking to
you.
you and looking forward to staying in touch.
Yes, of course.
Bye.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.